Well, here we are. Thank you for being here, Kia. It is an honor and a pleasure. How have you been, all in all?
Amazing. Yeah.
Just got back from Yosemite. It was incredible, huh?
Yeah. Getting out into nature, it's just the best medicine.
Yeah, we were just in Mexico City, and literally popping up on the weather forecast was very unhealthy.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'd never seen that. Not in LA, not in Asia.
Yeah.
The weather forecast literally saying very unhealthy. And we were seeing real issues, like so many people sick and fatigued and depressed. Yet at the same time, this really thriving wellness community, yoga community, which obviously that polarity of like extreme pollution and chaos, yet this really beautiful community arising of people seeking literally oxygen. Like our friend's yoga studio that we get invited to is called O2 Yoga, which we thought was totally appropriate because people are yearning for nature, for fresh air. And unfortunately in Mexico City, you got to get kind of indoors to get to that sanctuary. But I mean, what a blessing to get to Yosemite, places in nature.
It's truly one of the world's wonders, I think. And all of the massive waterfalls. So you're getting the negative ions off of the water and the waterfalls and the fresh spring water. It's what I felt when I meditated there was that I could just feel my energy body clearing. And it was effortless. Yeah. There was nothing I needed to do. I could just pay attention and start to feel how the resonance of my energy was shifting. And I felt a deep inner quiet. And so my motto coming back has been just simply slow down. Because my mind's ambitious. I think our minds are ambitious, right? We have a lot that we want to do, that we can do. And so for me, the main thing is to slow down and just do what's in front of me and remember that time's really infinite.
That in itself is a discipline though, right? Especially if we are in a vortex such as Mexico City or New York City or downtown LA or something like that, to make that time, like our friends that live right in the core of Mexico City, they get out to the hills that are like an hour and a half away, and that you feel the instant dropping.
I think that's going to be more and more important as these higher frequency 5G or whatever it is they have in store for us comes online. Just to get out of the intensity of the magnetic fields that are now in the city. Just how important it is for our own health and well-being that we do go out in nature and reset.
Totally.
Yeah.
For those people like that literally cannot find time to get out in nature, and like just visualizing that person living in a high-rise building, 30 stories up, working in a high-rise building, 30 stories up, pollution galore, and they're in the grind of needing to support their family and so forth. And speaking to that person in particular, and they can't get out into waterfalls and places that are kind of off the grid, can you speak of ways, maybe Kundalini kriyas or lifestyle habits or ways to make their home supportive in these big technological changes and leaps? Speaking to that person of how they can practically bring that into the grind, into the population overload, into the pollution.
Yeah, a great question. The first image I had as you were talking was of a tree, and that the importance of, in your lunch break, getting out and finding if there is a park or any tree that may be on a street nearby. Hopefully there's some. And just leaning your spine up against the tree and hanging out there for a little while. Because the magnetic field of the tree has a protective quality to it, and it helps our own energy adjust. And then the other thing is related to Kundalini Kriyas. Like when you wake up in the morning, the most important thing we can do, I think, in order to survive and thrive the intensity of these times is to have some kind of practice that shifts the stagnation out of our body first thing in the morning and shifts our magnetic field so that we start to vibrate at a higher frequency. And what happens when we elevate the frequency of our energy, we become more impervious to the negative, incoherent energies around us. So whether that be people, places, or things, we become more impervious to that. And we actually start to attract things that are more in alignment with the frequency that we've set first thing in the morning. It's a discipline to get up, and really you have to go on faith at the beginning until you start to see how these practices do shift the quality of your life. And what I would say is if you start doing this kind of practice in the morning, and I can share a few clues as to what to do, but get ready for your life to change. First, you'll have some realizations about what needs to change. Then some time may pass. Then you may start to see ways that you can make the changes. And maybe a little more time passes. And then you'll have the courage and the presence to actually create a life that is a lot more supportive of the you within you, so that then we're not in the survive, the intensity of the times. We're much more in the thrive and ownership of self and leadership of others kind of realm. And so I feel like anybody who's tuning in to you is already probably alert to that capacity that lies within them, whether they've tapped into it yet or not.
Beautiful. I read a post that you're endeavoring to bring in the cold showers into your day. Are you continuing that?
Yogi Bhajan, so he brought the one lineage of Kundalini Yoga that I studied to the West. One of his biggest things was to get people to do cold showers. And towards the end of his life, he said, wow, I've gotten you Westerners to do everything, but I can't get you to take the cold shower. And I've resisted it for years and years because I felt like I was always getting sick afterwards. But then I met Wim Hof the Iceman, and he's extraordinary, by the way. He's a force of nature, and he's a true yogi through and through.
Totally.
And so I sat for 10 minutes in an ice bath with him right next to me and this Amazonian Brazilian goddess right in front of me, who was leaning back and saying, so what would I do if I wanted to amp this up? Meanwhile, I was just going into spacious awareness and refusing to focus on my body, which the moment I even went close to feeling what my body was like, I was literally almost about to shake out of the tube, of the tub we were in. But what that did was it helped me to overcome my fear, and it helped me to understand how to access cold or extreme sensations in a way where I wasn't bringing in my mental contraction, which was causing a physical contraction. So if you stay really deeply relaxed and you don't freak out in your mind, your body knows exactly what to do, which is what Wim Hof says. But for me anyway, I had to experience it to really get that level of it. We do it in Kundalini Kriyas all the time. We hold our arms up in ridiculous positions for long periods of time. The reason being that you want to go past the limitations of the mind, and so the body can do what it does best and reset and balance and harmonize. And so I really got that with him, and I've been doing the cold showers since then. And it doesn't even feel cold. Mm-hmm. Maybe for the first 5 seconds, and you take a deep breath and you relax, and then you're in. And even though when I feel my hands or parts of my body, sometimes for a couple of hours later, they still feel cold to me. but I don't feel cold, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really appropriate and timely that this Wim Hof cold plunge, ice bath movement is kind of spreading big time. I think it's really potent for our nervous system and part of us being prepared for what's to come in terms of all the 5G and just crazy amounts of new technologies and EMFs. This practice of plunging into the cold, it seems crazy at first, but I do it as well. We've got a pool that is meant to be a normal pool, but we haven't managed to get the heater to work properly back in Australia. So for about a year, we didn't use the pool, and we were bitching about not being able to get the heater working, no pool guys being able to get the heater working. Then Joe made this comment. It was about Tony Robbins, and he does a daily cold plunge as well, and having this kind of attitude of like, I don't compromise, I don't negotiate with that fear mind. Yeah. And he just jumps into the cold plunge no matter what. And the way Joe talked about that made a flip in me. And every day since, when we're in Perth, I jump in that cold pool, and it's like an ice bath. I do ice baths as well, and it's just as cold, if not colder. It's really cold. And it's a really powerful practice just to sit there and quiet the mind and go through all the initial reactions and aversions, and to just let the magic of that practice do its thing. Yeah. And it's been really, really helpful. So I'd slide that in for these people that are in these really busy places and busy time in their life where they can't get away, leaning against the tree. I think that's beautiful. Getting their feet on the earth. Yeah, exactly. Jumping, having the cold shower. Because even in the shower, even if you're in a high-rise building, because of the piping, you get a grounding current that also is literally grounding. So there's that as well. I
love
think.
That.
Yeah.
Love that. And the cold shower expands your auric field. So that your auric field being that electromagnetic energy of your body. And so that also strengthens your capacity to be radiant versus to be one who is sort of sponging in the environment. Yeah.
Speaking of radiant, your approach to yoga, your TTs, your radiant body methodology is awesome and
thank you.
So integral and comprehensive. Now, I know you bring a lot of attention to nutrition. Yes. How important do you feel that is for people on the path, people wanting to really take their yoga into the full comprehensive possibilities of it? How important do you feel nutrition is?
I think it's vital. Yeah. Just that old adage, you are what you eat. Yeah. That the frequency of the foods that we're eating is impacting us. The way we're digesting it is impacting us. The way we're eliminating it is impacting us. So that whole process, if we get stagnant in our digestion, it affects the way we're thinking and feeling. And so it's no mistake that when you go to any Eastern doctor, they'll address your digestive system first, being that you have to get everything flowing before you can start to work on the deeper stuff. So for me, it's so important not to take in chemicals in my food whenever possible. So organic foods and simple foods, staying away from processed, doing cleanses twice a year. That's been transformative for me for almost 15 years now. And I just finished another one a few weeks ago, and it's just amazing the difference that it makes.
What kind of cleanse typically, or different
I do
ones?
a digestive system cleanse. So a liquid food, basically, just to give everything a little bit of a rest. Sometimes some herbs to clear out the digestive tract. So that's my choice. I also did my first water fast towards the end of last year for 4 days. And that was powerful. And that's another kind of detox that I've been exploring, because it's a cellular detox. And what I felt when I came off of that was that my cells were singing to me when I ate food. There was a different sort of clarity that I had. So, yeah, obviously these things all to be taken in moderation and to gradually ease your way in. If you can go through 24 hours with just juice or just water, that's a really good place to start. What I also love about doing that kind of thing is that whenever you address one of the major influences in your life, like food, then it gives you an opportunity to review everything else. And we see what our thinking patterns are around what we eat. We see what our emotions are around what we eat, when we're choosing to eat, and those kinds of things. And so when we can address some of our mental programming around food, I think it really frees us up a lot.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there is a classic tendency to take these food fads, diet fads, to an extreme level. Yeah. I know I did when I first entered into yoga. I automatically assumed I'm a yogi, I got to be vegetarian, if not vegan, which is good. Yeah. But I did it, as many do, way prematurely. Yeah. And went too extreme and got ahead of myself and burnt out and did it too much. Didn't do it intelligently, didn't do it intuitively. Yep. So I think because fasting is quite a fad right now, which is good. But even that, I'm seeing many, even really switched on people that know about nutrition, just doing it way, way overboard. And that's right. The keto thing as well. Yep. So our tendency to take things way to the extreme. I know myself and many in the kind of wellness community and yoga and spiritual community to take things a bit too far, and there's no longevity to it or sustainability to it. Yeah. So again, to be doing it for 15 years is a real vouch for the sustainability of it and the intelligence of it, you know?
Yeah, and that's why when I designed the cleanse that I do, ultimately it became liquid food versus just juice, because the cold juice. And then also if I do it in the winter time, I do warm soups and smoothies for a week. And then that feels nourishing versus depleting. And I found I got just the same results. And I've been leading, hundreds, who knows, maybe thousands by now of people through this. And they reflect the same things that I've been discovering in myself. You get just the same effects doing it with liquid food that has fats and, some level of proteins in it versus just doing the straight up cleanse. Because then often people do too much sugar. Right. And if there's anything that's a culprit in our life, it's the sugar that seems to be in everything. It's so alerting when you start to read the sugar, the grams of sugar in everything that you're eating. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of purification as well, I know a lot of people in the kind of neo-tantric movement that passionately are against these kind of yogic austerities and purification practices that could be put under white tantra or white kundalini or whatever kind of label we want to put it under. I know a lot of people in this kind of new tantric movement that heavily say that all this purification and austerity business is nonsense, and they're more leaning to the sensual, indulgent, have whatever you want path. Now, where do you lie in that? Because your approach does seem very balanced, in which there's a place for austerity and there's a place for purification, and maybe there's a place for indulgence. Where are you at with all that?
I'm just thinking of my house as you're saying that, as a metaphor, that there's the bedroom, the place for sensual pleasure. There's the essentials of the bathroom. There's the kitchen, another realm for indulgence, but also for purification. There's the asana and the pranayama are also a kind of tapas, a kind of austerity. Because if we were just to go towards what feels pleasurable to us, as the yoga tradition states so clearly, what starts as pleasure can very soon become pain if we overdo it. And so ultimately, we have to clean our house, otherwise it would be disgusting to live in. And we have to, I think in this day and age, clean our bodies because of all of the environmental toxins that we're talking about, that we have to be extra mindful in these times. In many ways, I think some of the Kriya type practices and the pranayams and the energy-based practices that are coming more into the collective now, they're coming in for this very reason, that the intensity of the times demands that we take some active steps, call them austerities, call them disciplines, so that we maintain in balance. Otherwise, what I see happening, especially to those who don't have a path and are just trying to survive the world, is there's a lot of early deaths. There's a lot of people in drug addiction. There's a lot of people just looking for a way to numb the pain and the confusion in life. So I guess it's a long-winded way of saying.
No, that was a great answer.
I really am a supporter of a balanced and open-minded approach. Like there's no one way for everyone. Maybe somebody's way is to really go into the full pleasure route, but that's not going to be for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And just thinking about people that are taking that path to the edge, when we sit down like this and get real and intimate, they pretty much always admit that it's not quite doing it.
Right.
On the surface it is, and it looks wild and it looks sexy and
yeah.
But then when they sit down and really get honest, they often admit like, nah, I'm really wanting to like, I'm not, it's an avoidance of the present moment. They pretty much admit that there's constant seeking of wild exaltation, pleasure on the level of form is actually an attempt to get out of the moment.
Right.
And they pretty much in one way or another always admit that when we get down and really get honest and vulnerable about it. Because that plane of pleasure and pain in terms of duality is a part of the human experience, but it's not the only plane of our consciousness. So if we're just yo-yoing on that as our spiritual path, that's kind of an exacerbation of the samsara, of the suffering, from where I'm observing the predicament, you know?
Yeah, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we all have to deal with our mind, don't we? And so we're always going to have to come back to that essential understanding of who we are and why we are, and asking those relevant questions and watching the things that we're attaching to as pleasure or avoiding as pain, and finding that middle path of neutrality, so that if we want to lead, if we want to thrive, if we want to be an example of a life of freedom and fulfillment, we have to, I think, walk equally in the pleasure and pain, and so that we can be neutral in the face of all of it, and see it all as the divine play. At least that's my practice. So I do a lot of practices, kriyas, things that it's challenging for me. Not maybe, maybe I would rather get up and make my cup of black tea and, eat my breakfast and chill out. But no, I'll get up and I'll do something and I'll challenge myself and I'll see where I'm still caught in my ego identification. I'll see where I'm in avoidance. I'll see where my mind has gotten a little bit too attracted to hanging out with certain stories or tales that I may be telling myself. And so on those days where I don't do my practice, I notice it, but I've been also practicing long enough now that some days I get out of bed, I drink my cup of tea, and I roll through the day, and I allow that other experience just to see.
It's part of the balance.
What does that feel like? And the interesting thing is, inevitably, at some point, I'll see a nice little spot somewhere, and I'll just sit. And my practice will be without the discipline of it. And so for me, I also like to keep that fluidity. I think at the beginning I couldn't do that because that one day of not doing my sadhana would be enough to derail me for weeks, maybe even months. And then I would build it back up again. But when it becomes that space of coziness within you is so familiar, your internal world is so familiar to you that there is no separation anymore, then I think that space is always available. But in my experience, it takes a little time to get to know that part of yourself. We're so trained to live in the external world and the sensory experience of the external world, and it takes a little time to learn how to find the comfortable seat within, right?
Yeah.
And to feel, as Yogi Bhajan put it, to feel cozy. And I love that term because I think when you're comfortable in yourself, it does feel cozy to be still and quiet.
Yeah, that feels good. I think that's pretty common as well, to grip to the practice, to be kind of addicted and extreme, similar to the diet situations. Like if I have one day off that diet, I'm going to be off the rails. So I think that is healthy for people to have a real structure and discipline with the practice. And maybe it is extreme for a while, in which we're neurotic and we're gripping to the practice and then becoming cozy with it and a bit more fluid with it. I know I've had to, especially since becoming a parent. I didn't think I was attached to my ways of practicing because nothing was revealing it to me. I had so much more time.
Yes.
But then when kids came into my life, it was just magnified how neurotic I was about my practice.
Yeah.
And even that, I think, is a good balance for parents out there that are finding it hard to get in the practice. Maybe like Rod Stryker, he has his non-negotiables in which he has his 3 hours in the morning all to himself to practice.
Yeah.
He gets up at 4:30 a.m. though to make that happen. So that balance of, no, this is a non-negotiable. I got to do my practice. I'm a better human being when I do my practice.
Yeah.
I had that kind of thing, which was good. Then I found, just through the intensity of life at that moment of Joe's parents dying and babies coming into the world and literally being forced to loosen my grip on the practice of life forced me into being more flexible. And I think that's pretty common for people as well. Maybe our Dharma is shifting into a caretaking mode, or just our Dharma can shift into different chapters of the life. And I know for me, there was resistance at first.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could be my best without a specific set of practices. But then gradually I became more cozy in my body and more flexible. And one thing that really did help me was Lama Surya Das's teachings of Dzogchen. He really helped me integrate all these really powerful yoga practices into a much more spontaneous and flexible way of getting little tastes throughout the whole day and continuing it throughout the whole day. That was really, really helpful.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's a lifestyle anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ultimately. And there's that saying that children are the highest form of yoga, marriage and children. If you're handling those ones consciously, then you know you're doing the work.
Right.
And you're seeing your patterns, you're seeing your lack of presence or capacity for presence, you're seeing your compassion or not, your impatience or not. You're seeing it all, and you're getting to just live it in a different arena. So, wow.
And Yogi Bhajan was big on bringing yoga into the household, wasn't he?
Bringing yoga into the household. So in sadhana, your children come to sadhana with you if you have a group sadhana that you do it with, or, you know, they're in the room with you as you're practicing. Like, that was the idea. And yeah, it becomes a daily living practice. And ultimately, the spontaneity and the adaptability, right?
Yeah,
that
we
have.
do it. We bring our kids on retreat and
Great.
into satsangs and all that. And it often does trigger people, and there are often complaints after. But pretty much always, especially on retreat when we've got time to kind of go through the layers and go through our automatic reactions, and pretty much always the people that are triggered on the first couple of days admit to these huge breakthroughs of feeling more compassion than they have in a long time and feeling more playfulness than they have in a long time. So it's really interesting when we can really allow for the trigger.
Yep.
And not believe in the trigger so much.
Yeah.
And allow the trigger to burn up and allow it to go. And it's always so rich. And it's tricky when it's that one class. Like after the retreat, we brought all our kids to a satsang. And again, a whole lot of people were triggered and complained. And it is tricky to work through those triggers when you don't have much time. But in that retreat time, the breakthroughs were exquisite. But they can bring up a lot, especially if we're attached to quietness.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Right?
Because it's spontaneous and it's not predictable. So
part of what I love about going to India, I go a lot, I do teacher trainings there, I take people there, is just that on a sensory level, it's so much. It's so much more than what we're used to. And people come with just a whole list of unconscious preferences about how life is. The tap opens up and it's hot water. There's a heating. Your bed feels comfortable. You know, I don't know. There's quiet. People are not beeping at you all the time. And it's just nothing is the same in India. And people get an opportunity to look at just how many unconscious drivers are there that are keeping us entrapped in many ways, because we don't have that flexibility to be like, oh, there's a child crying in the plane seat behind me, or whatever. I sat down to meditate. There's a whole bunch of noise. Wow, can I find the stillness in the noise and just let that go through me? I was just in India in Allahabad at the Kumbh Mela. There's 70 million people, right, who pass through there. And so there's literally a roar you can hear of just humanity. From the moment that you wake up, I was waking up there at probably 4:45, and going to sit and just hearing that roar of humanity, and then all the different sound systems starting to play, you know, crackly, Jai Sitaram or whatever it was, and letting it all come in and inform the experience on that subtle vibratory level. I actually had so much fun, and I was able to reflect on how just a few years ago that would have driven me crazy. And yet the ability to not personalize what's happening and be neutral, it's a precious commodity, I think, that.
Definitely. And you get back to India quite a bit, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you feel most potent about getting to India? I also have a deep relationship and love getting back to India, but why Why do you? It's the birthplace of yoga, all of that, but personally, what draws you back?
I feel like there's, I have to just kind of go into the sort of, I call it esoteric or quantum scientific approach, but I feel like there's a potential there. There's a certain unified state of consciousness that's been held for millennia by some individuals who are so dedicated to understanding what it means to be a human being and have accessed extraordinary levels of awareness. So whenever I go there, my practice is elevated exponentially. And by practice, I just mean my awareness of myself. And so I go for that. As much as students who come and we, train with me, as much as they go through an exploration and an expansion and growth, and I go through the same thing. And also there's teachers there that I really admire and appreciate. And so I have the practice of sitting at their feet and receiving their wisdom and feeling how they up-level my understanding and bringing them into the groups that I take there so that we're collectively up-leveled and opened to something else. And that you can get that in other places, but to me there's a special essence that happens in India. Yeah. Do you find that too?
I do, without a doubt.
Yeah.
In beautiful ways, in traumatic ways, in always very powerful ways. I mean, several trips, especially my first few that I can think of, I literally thought I was going to die. Like, I went there fiercely, doing deep, intensive cleanses and full-on Kundalini Kriyas for weeks on end, and really, really intense. Like, I kind of wanted to die in a way, like leave old shit behind. But each trip, literally, I felt like I was going to die. And that wasn't fun. Just laying in bed for days, aching in every cell of the body and really in misery. Yet when I look back, they were rich, pivotal, like rites of passage and full-on experiences. Yet I would keep going back and enter in that similar kind of ritual, so to speak, again and again. And I love it. That potency that you're speaking of, there's this center of gravity, this vortex of energy that has been built up for who knows how long of, like you said, expansive consciousness and great yogis and whatnot. Yeah. And then also, to like bathe in that and elevate my consciousness furthermore.
Yeah.
I love it, and I get back whenever I can. It's different doing it as a family now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Joe and I ran a retreat there with 35 other people participating, and they thought we were staying in an ashram that I go back to whenever I can, and they thought they would do us a favor and put us in the neighboring apartment building, but it was really, really dirty and just, and we all got majorly sick, like crazy sick. Soleil was a little baby getting sick, and we were vomiting and just full on sick. And again, feeling like we're all gonna die. Yet we got to hold our shit together, so to speak, and manage a group. So that was our last experience. Yet we still want to get back there, so it's unpredictable. It's confronting. Yeah. It can make you sick like crazy, yet so potently awakening and beautiful and everything. It's like everything, death, birth, beauty, confrontation, everything is so amplified.
It is.
And the transcendental, mystical love energy is also magnified.
It's so saturated in the culture. I think that the extraordinary, the things that we would think are extraordinary or fictitious or magical. It's just so integrated in the culture. Yeah. So, very powerful. I had, it's interesting. I've been going now every year, twice a year, consistently for the last 7, maybe 8 years now. And not doing the sick thing, just not being sick. And then this last time, on the way there, I knew something extraordinary was going to happen. You know that feeling? You're like, something's ripening. And little did I know it was going to come through getting violently sick the night before the last day of my training. And then just not really eating for a couple of days, going straight into the International Yoga Festival in Rishikesh. But interestingly, what happened was I had the most transcendent experience of my life, sitting by the Ganga and feeling the intelligence of the flow of the river and just how perfect everything that was happening around us was. The beautiful women dressed in the garb of different rivers, doing a dance, the mantras that were happening, the fire ceremony that was happening, the intention of everybody there. I felt it on a really transcendental level of the perfection of the intelligence of everything, that it was all coming through this beautiful river, something that's very hard to put into words, but came through an unexpected thing of being violently sick, which so humbled me, kind of brought me physically, emotionally to my knees. And then, boom, this opportunity to see things differently. And so, yeah.
I don't think you need to do the sick thing, though, do you? I mean,
you don't.
There are
need
smart
to do
ways
the
to
sick
avoid
thing.
it.
No, my first 7 years before this year, I was having extraordinary experiences without the sick thing. It was just interesting that happened. And our tendency is that we'll want to put a negative story. Oh, I've gotten sick because I'm not worth it, or I've done something wrong,
Right.
or it's just all of those unconscious stories we hold about ourselves, that this is happening because I'm bad, or I did something, or didn't do something.
Yeah.
And so I like breaking those down as well, to just be like, oh, it is.
Sure.
It just is. Do we need to know where it came from? Did it come from the food? Did it come from that person? Did it come does it really matter? It's here now. So those things are interesting to play with.
And it's great to be humbled.
It is.
I hate it, but I love getting humbled. Like, the spiritual ego, it can humble that beautifully. You go to India and it humbles that beautiful spiritual ego big time, and I appreciate that big time as well.
Yeah.
But one often brings up the question, if they haven't gone to India and they're going deeper into the yoga practice, do I need to go to India? Everyone's speaking of India. This is where yoga came from. Do you think it is a necessary pilgrimage for people?
I don't.
No, I don't either.
I think it is if it calls you.
Mm-hmm.
It's always called me. I read Autobiography of a Yogi in 1990, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7. And it captured my imagination so fully. It awoke something in me, and I knew that I had to go. And it feels like my spiritual home. So for me, yes. For somebody like me, yes. If it's not calling you, not necessary for your evolution. Yeah.
It does seem helpful to, every now and then, if we can, extricate ourselves from quote unquote reality, our norm, our normal operations, whether that is our basement that we've made into a sanctuary, whether that is a retreat in Topanga or Mexico, or I don't think it needs to be these typically auspicious places. Topanga is one, Mexico is one, but I don't think it needs to be a particular place. But it really can help to get out of our normal routine, so to speak, can't it?
It's so important. And in fact, just yes, on a week-to-week basis, day-to-day basis, having that sanctuary in your home, so important. But actually, the scientists are reflecting that getting out of your life completely for periods of time, at least once a year, where you immerse yourself in a process of rediscovery, so that we actually give ourselves the opportunity to rebirth, right? Yeah. To create something new. Otherwise, we just keep creating the same. What I love about traveling so much, and I was just reading an article that said traveling was, I think, the number one way for people to feel happy. I think the reason that we feel so happy is that we get an opportunity just to be whoever we want to be. Right. We don't have to be the person that everybody expects us to be, or that we even expect ourselves to be. And then we become more spontaneous. We become a little more evolutionary in how we act and are. And so if you go with an attitude to actually evolve yourself and to change into an experience of a yoga retreat or a training or anywhere where you're doing some conscious work and self-reflection and maybe energy work and physical body work, then that opens the doorways, I feel, for the kinds of shifts and transformation that we need as humanity right now, because the collective consciousness on the lower level is just, it's simply the frequency of fear and limitation. And we have to learn how to transcend that so that we don't energize it. And so these opportunities to come together and really do the work on ourselves, to me at least, that has to be something that we aim for in whatever way we can afford to do that. Even if we just get away somewhere a little closer to nature and do some practices ourselves. But whatever it is, that we understand that we're so much driven by habit and the subconscious, unconscious mind, and we think that we're so in control, but we're so not in control, and we're so affected by the collective consciousness. And so these times where we get to shift and elevate ourselves, what we end up doing then is we become a lighthouse for others. And what's exciting to me, particularly about this time, is I feel like there's enough people who are doing this kind of work, that the collective consciousness that is more right, more evolutionary, where there's much more consciousness of love and connection and possibility, that it's a little easier for people to access than it used to be 10, 20 years ago. As much as there's fear and intensity, there's a lot of people doing work right now on themselves. Those who have the fortune to be in front of teachers or teachers themselves, or any kind of teachings that they've had, that have a practice, that have been working that practice and are part of the solution on the kind of collective consciousness level. Yeah, beautiful to get that insight and perspective, because it's so easy to become fixated on a lot of the political upheaval and horrors that are happening in the world as well, you know, and the disrespect to the earth is continuing to be exacerbated, and it is easy to become fixated on that. Yes. And our, I think, tendency to transcend but not include these predicaments is pretty common as well. Yes. So it seems like this balance is also being cultivated within the community of really being intelligent and aware of a lot of these predicaments that are going on, and not kind of copping out from them. Right. At the same time, going beyond them into a deeper wisdom, into a deeper actuality, and then to bring it back in. So we're not, once again, in avoidance of a relative
truth?
I think that if we're doing the work on ourselves, it's a kind of spiritual activism.
Yeah.
And so it's different than, numbing out or avoiding or going to the iPhone or watching movies or binge watching show after show after show. Mm-hmm. To me, the practice has come to this level of spiritual activism. If we are in the business of radical self-honesty, if we're in the business of conscious action, taking responsibility when we're unconscious, all of these things. And we are working on accessing the inner space of peace and spaciousness and connection to all, then we're absolutely part of the solution. Mm-hmm. I come from a real activist background, anti-nuclear for many, many years, and, Native American land rights issues. And I definitely came to the point of realization that the most impact that I could do was to work on myself, which may seem selfish from the outside, but definitely proved to be the solution for me, and then to help others to do that. Mm-hmm. Because then we can't be bought. Our energy can't be bought. Fear can't be triggered in us. We're less prone to the subconscious programming that's so prevalent in the culture, whether it's commercials or media in other ways, and we hold a certain potentiality of how this world can be. And my teacher, Pandit Rajmani Tiganite from the Himalayan Institute, is big on this right now, and I so appreciate his effort to get people meditating, to get people in this space. And he's himself been engaged in a very long 3-year or more practice, which we did a 2-week fire ceremony in India earlier this year, all around gathering energy and creating a new potentiality in the collective consciousness, so that we can slowly turn this tide of where our minds have been kind of kidnapped in this certain realm of fear-mongering or division, polarity, and to invite us back into a new way of being. So I think it's an exciting time.
Definitely.
To be in.
Yeah. So with him, do you gather and chant and generate energy in that way? Is there a formalized...
we've been, about 1,000 of us have been doing the Sri Chakra. It's a 16-verse mantra to the kind of the energy of benevolence, the energy of conscious creation, the energy of community. And so that intention within our practice is to offer that energy toward what he's doing. And then he's consecrating a shrine at the Himalayan Institute in July, and he's been gathering a lot of energy to make that a power place, so that ultimately you just walk through the place and your energy field will be absorbing different levels of intelligence and potentiality. So he initiated it because he saw that he needed to do something more. And so I think we need leadership like that right now, with people who have the mastery to be able to lead on the level of deep spiritual transformation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's inspiring for people to... I mean, we've got all this online information and can hop on and just get more information than we ever have. These classes that are great, and I think it is an awesome tool. You can hop on and do your Yoga Glow classes, now Glow, GLO, which is great. I think that is an awesome tool, and with that you can generate your own energy and then deepen your own practice and deepen your own home energy and whatnot. But there is nothing quite like meeting with these masters in person.
Yeah.
And doing these practices in person. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of seekers, a lot of practitioners don't take that initiative in the modern day of being able to just hop on the computer or hop on Google or hop on whatever and do an audiobook, which is all great. And there can be incredible transmission.
Yes.
But I think what is pretty common is loading up more and more knowledge and knowing these spiritual truths and practices and whatnot. But there's a big difference between knowing it and then really getting the transmission and feeling it and then practicing it and acquiring it and being it.
Being it, exactly, the experience of it. Yeah.
So for people out there, and people often express of that predicament of like having huge breakthroughs on retreat or being, with these masters and then like a kind of withdrawal of like, okay, tomorrow, back to reality, back to the norm. And I think that's got to be honored. Then there's the re-entry, the practice of, okay, like, how do I bring this back into wherever I am, back into the noisy household or back into the corporate job I work. We're not all yoga teachers and can't all get into nature when we want and that kind of thing. So again, bringing it back to that person of the faith required, the morning practices to help build up that momentum. Can you speak to that person again?
Yes.
That is living a very, you could say 9-to-5 job or something like that, where they're wanting to bring in that heart-centered awareness, that integration back into environments that aren't so conducive for being in the heart and being in pure awareness and whatnot.
Well, I think there's a relevance to those people, for those people as well, of where they are, the impact they can have in the environments that they're in, and their capacity, if they're in a toxic environment, to shift it. Like there's no rule that says that we have to suffer in this life, and I think that if we can just begin to move our bodies first thing in the morning. So I like to say, you can get up and dance 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
That's what we do. Yeah. It's great.
Just dance 15 minutes. You just boogie hard first thing in the morning. That's a great way to shift and elevate your energy. And then sit down and integrate and be still and tune in. Do some kind of practice where I think the simplest and maybe the most relevant one for most of us is just to come into heart-centered awareness, so that coherence between mind and heart can happen, and just establishing that sense of presence and connection and a kind of internal listening, right? Just listening to what's wanting to be heard from within. I think that's so important. So whether you get up and dance or you do any kind of asana or go to the gym, I think the extra addition I would say is that get dynamic movement happening, because that's the way we access the energy body. Yes, we can do it through sort of still postures and getting onto a Stairmaster and stuff, but there's something really magical that happens in terms of the coherence of the energy body when we're twisting side to side, or we're inhaling up, exhaling fold, or we're moving the arms out. And, we just start to activate and energize and refine the frequency of our body, like we were speaking about in the beginning. And so then our internal reality starts to shift. Our thought patterns start to reflect the new frequency. And we start to see possibilities where when our energy was in this state, we're not seeing those same possibilities. And I think that's important for all of us. So then that's the place of personal evolution. And so it doesn't really matter ultimately what job you're in or what it is you're doing. If you're in a regular practice of activating your energy, of befriending your mind, of getting conscious and connected, you can bring that into any environment, and you can be the lighthouse in that environment. You can be the one that starts to turn the energy from toxic into, really radiant and cooperative and beautiful. And so everyone has that power. And once we start to access that power, it becomes clearer and clearer how we can use that to serve others. Yeah. And so, again, wherever you are, you can do that, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. I do find it inspiring, actually. A lot of my privates are people in very corporate jobs and owning big businesses and just normal jobs, so to speak.
Yeah.
And to watch them really bring that light into those workplaces and express the beauty they're seeing transform. I mean, that's exciting,
Yeah.
Rather than it just happening in the yoga room or just happening when we go to India or seeing that beauty happen right downtown or in our household. I mean, that's where we need it as well, huh?
Yes, sure. And I just want to encourage anybody who's listening to feel that potential within themselves, to understand that we all have this capacity for evolution, transformation, lightness of being, creativity, love. Like it's all possible. Doesn't matter what our background is. It doesn't matter what we've had to deal with in our lives. Each and every one of us has the capacity to look at that and transcend it, and be a real force for light. And in my experience, that's sometimes the biggest hurdle, is just believing in yourself and sensing that that's possible. In order to believe in yourself, usually you have to believe in somebody else first, that you trust, that can show you another way, and then you need to have a direct experience of it. That's, for me, where the practices come in. Figuring out a practice, finding somebody maybe local who can guide you in a practice, or finding one online. For sure, people are using Glow and having transformative experiences in their life. So if you can find an online practice that suits your time, that is doing the things I mentioned, like activating your energy, maybe activating your navel particularly, if you're trying to build that sense of yourself, it's so important, and it's so possible. I think I have plants.
I didn't see anything. For those of you listening, we're outside on a beautiful June gloom day, and there are bees and plants and
things
all kinds
falling
of good
on my
stuff
head, which I was trying to figure out. Is
I didn't see anything,
that
but
or
must
is
have been
that a
something
leaf?
very small.
But what there is the most extraordinary scent of.
Yeah.
I don't know what these flowers are.
I don't know either, but the
yummy.
bees are loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah. LA is looking very happy right now. It's beautiful to see.
The rejuvenation from the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Really powerful.
Just to further, I think, just substantiate that, bringing this awareness into work life, into daily life, into our roles. So having these morning practices, having a check-in teacher or an online go-to is really helpful. And the value of having mentorship and satsang and sangha is invaluable. And then those daily moments, again, those kind of Dzogchen moments of remembrance in the day. So imagine someone's been at work for 3 hours, everyone's onto their third or fourth coffee. Everyone's in their roles, it's kind of quote unquote reality. Everyone's in their roles and it's very separate. And then here's whoever's listening, interested in, they're experiencing themselves beyond their role. How the fuck am I going to keep in contact with this self, capital S, this heart, soul? Like, I keep feeling it when I'm in India, or when I'm in retreat, or when I'm meditating in the morning, or when I'm dancing, but I keep losing it when I'm speaking to so-and-so, or when I'm in a board meeting, or when I'm back to role, back to separateness. Can you give any like real in-the-moment practices for helping one remember it in that moment?
I think the most powerful one is breath.
Yeah.
The moment we come into focusing on our breath and then taking our attention within the body. We're so enamored of our intellect, all of us, that we tend to rely on it to get us through life, and we forget that the true wisdom is heart-centered. And so if we can actually keep bringing our attention to our heart, it may seem so simple, but it actually hang out there just for a minute or so. It creates a different, the scientists show this, a different brainwave frequency, and then our thoughts and speech and action start to come from that heart-centered place. And the Heart Math Institute, actually here in California, have been doing all these studies about how to create this coherence between the mind and the heart, and how when we do that, our mental capacity actually gets refined, it gets stronger, because it's in coherence with that. With the heart and the magnetic field that is driven by the heart center. So that's one of the things I would say. Breathing deeply and then feeling into your heart center. And you can do that without anybody really knowing what you're doing, so you don't have to be the freak. And the other thing you can do, as I sit here looking at you with your headphones on, is you can use music and mantra to invoke that internal space, because the power of sound to also create coherence at the level of mind. So if you have favorite uplifting music, or if you like mantra, or if you use particular mantras, and nowadays you can actually get specific sounds and tracks that are designed to bring your mind into coherent and optimized state. So if you're more scientific in your life, you can take that approach. You can look into some of these scientists or quantum physicists / scientists who are doing this study on different sound currents and how it's impacting the brain, and find some music on that level. So I think breath and sound are so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And because our attempt to still the mind just through willpower alone, it's a futile attempt.
Yeah, I once had that described to me. It's like blowing into a hurricane and asking it to stop.
Right.
It's the function of the mind is to do what the mind does. And if we can just be able to witness it and not jump on the trains as they pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the breath, sound, which brings me to beloved Guru Singh.
Oh.
We've got a go-to song on one of his earlier albums, Hari.
Oh, Hare, Hari.
It just repeat it, ha, 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 Hari.
Oh,
and it goes for about 20 or 25 minutes. And we have, that's our most played song. Whenever Soleil
and it's
was
really
irritable.
A nod current.
It's a great, it's beautiful. And it just gradually peaks and then gradually comes back down. And it's masterful. It's really, really beautiful. I'll leave a link below, because every time I've played it in a class, people drop in so quick.
Yeah.
They might not be dropping in. I might be just hopping on and we're just doing it. And then all of a sudden I'll put that on and people drop in.
Oh, I love that.
And with Soleil and Lani, whenever they're irritable and we've got it available, we'll put that on. And it will drop them in every time.
Oh,
I've tried it with other babies as well. They're all irritable, nothing's working, and then I'll put that on. Within a couple minutes they're in.
Amazing.
It's beautiful. And I often even get people to chant it in classes.
Great.
Because even just that ha,
Oh, yeah.
ha, it's like a laugh.
Yeah.
Ha, ha, ha. Like you're pumping the diaphragm, and it's just a very organic thing we do when we're laughing or when we feel insight. It instantly relaxes people, like the belly, the gut tightness, you know?
Yeah.
So that
Love that.
Hari is beautiful. I can see that being really helpful for people if they're feeling tight in their gut and tight in their back and in that kind of fight or flight response. Either a true laugh or some good old Hari, which again I'll leave a link below. It's great. And like listening to that on the way to work or on a lunch break, I mean, that feels good.
Changes your feel. My favorite of his is just one of those little things that runs through my head when I get stressed. We're so fortunate that the infinite will take care of it.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
And I just remember that. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. It's not about me. Exactly. It's not up to me. I just need to relax, take some breaths, not get stressed out. Okay. Oh, wait. I see something I didn't see before. And I remember, the infinite's taking care of it. Yeah. Guru Singh. Love him.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I'll do a little time check, Kia.
Yes.
I don't want to keep you for much longer. But before we wrap it up, just want to honor and respect how you bring in many different yoga methodologies, which, as far as I see, isn't that common. We tend to like to belong to a club and separate things into very distinct boxes. And I really appreciate and love how you have brought together many different influences of your life, many different yoga methodologies into what you're teaching now of Radiant Body. So can you speak a little bit about that journey and what has inspired you to bring it all together into what you're currently teaching?
Yeah, thank you. Wow. I feel like it's my role in some way. Like I have Uranus conjunct some planetary alignment that invites me to be a little bit more counter to the normal in that way. It's what I teach is born out of my own practice. And so it starts there, and it's born through the guidance of my mentors and teachers who I use so that I'm constantly checking myself. I started in Ashtanga, and I really needed to get in my body because I was dissociated for many, many years. And it was a very healing practice for me, and it took me to a certain level. And then I came to Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan, and it just blew me open. And I found my sense of self in such a way that I just dug a really deep well for about 10 years. I was still teaching vinyasa 10, 12 classes a week at YogaWorks, but Kundalini became my field of study. And then I started to be invited to teach Kundalini at the different festivals. But my own approach to it has been strongly informed by my love of Ashtanga and my need to be fully grounded in my body before I do such an energetically elevating practice as Kundalini Yoga. So it became a natural thing to give a very solid vinyasa style, sun salutation style warm-up into a Kundalini Kriya and meditation because that's what I need. And I've discovered that many people need that because we're so sedentary in our lives. And if we just get off our chair and then we sit down and we do a bunch of breath work and a bunch of auric cleansing and arm work, it's great, but it doesn't address us in a fully holistic way. And the body is so important. And so keeping that flexibility and strength and balance and connection to the body is a is like the foundation for me. And so that's how my what I teach has grown. And then it came to a point where I wanted to see what other lineages of Kundalini Yoga were teaching. Some of what Yogi Bhajan shared, I was like, really? Like, where's that coming from? And so I went and I started to study in the Bihar school, and then I'm studying with Pandit Rajmani Tiganai, which is another tantric Kundalini tradition, and just starting to see all the reflections that just kept informing what I was teaching at another level. So it's really a combination of everything that I've learned. I am very close with the roots of Kundalini as taught by Yogi Bhajan, and when I share that tradition, I'm very mindful to share it in a way that is honoring of the tradition, and so that's a big part of the way that I walk through my life. Is I want to stay in integrity with what I'm teaching, and yet also be in the kind of evolutionary edge of allowing all of the knowledge and wisdom and experience that I've had to come through and serve those in front of me in exactly the way they need, without trying to box myself in too much, if that makes sense. Yeah. And Guru Singh, who's my other primary teacher, has always encouraged me to ride this edge and to be that person. And ultimately, I think I'm able to therefore access and invite people into some of the deeper Kundalini and Tantric practices that might not touch them otherwise because they seem too weird or too intense or too esoteric. And so I really feel like my role is a bridge to those who are yearning for something deeper but not sure how to get there. And so yeah, I can only just say that I teach what feels authentically right to me in the moment, and I'm guided by a couple of very powerful teachers in my life, and I keep checking in with them to make sure that, I'm on track.
Beautiful. That's super inspiring. Thank you for sharing. And I think you're fulfilling that role that you are feeling, and it feels very accessible, the way you're bringing it all together and teaching, the authenticity, the integrity, you're holding true to the traditions, and even just the humor. There's a lightness that I feel in which you're really honoring it, but not taking it too seriously, which feels like a beautiful balance, right?
So glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because what a drag if it was all so serious, right?
Yeah.
You want your enlightenment practices to be full of fun and
lighten
laughter.
Up. Lighten up.
Yeah, exactly. I once had a teacher say to me, look, if the person you're following has a very long face, then run in the opposite direction. Like if it's not bringing you more joy, ultimately, then you have to question what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which even that is the delicate balance, though, because you go to some of these master teachers and it feels sometimes very strict and very stern, and especially like in the Zen tradition. At first, they run you through the mill and it's very strict and not many smiles and not much lightness, but once you go through that rite of passage and initiation or whatever, the kind of initial tests, then it's a whole lot of laughs. But even that seems like a fine balance. But I agree. If the teacher's got a long face and it's too, you can feel the tension. Yeah, I agree, run. At the same time, that subtle discernment. Because you can feel when a teacher has that stern kind of classical, strict way.
Yep.
Yet they're loving and got
That's
a sense
right.
of you can feel that.
That's it.
Absolutely. You can feel when they're not taking it too seriously.
And I think most of us need that kind of strength in a teacher, because we need them to be able to point out when we're caught in our ego.
When it's not all just love and light. And
right, exactly. Yes. No, you need someone to be able to check you.
Yes.
I think that's really where the sort of the age-old parampara, that tradition of teacher-student, was there, so that as you gained more power and presence through your practice, there was somebody who could check your ego. And reflect to you where you're buying into a story about yourself or how great you are, or, you know? It's so important.
Very important. This is a great place to leave off. Let's wrap it up by, can you share with people where they can find you on glow.com and any upcoming trainings or offerings?
Yeah, well, glow.com, it's an incredible platform, and I've seen firsthand how teachings that one would think, how could the fullness of this teaching come across online, and yet it does.
It does.
What I feel when I'm teaching those classes is I actually feel like that space and time where everybody is connecting, whether it's in that moment or not. It's a really wild thing. Yeah. It's like somehow this medium works. It's working on our evolutionary self in an interesting way.
I agree.
So yeah, Glow is one place. And then on my website, kiamiller.com, you can find all about Radiant Body Yoga. So the sort of tantric Kundalini-based teachings that I share that are informed with sort of more of the Western perception of how yoga is, so that if you do the training, you would be equipped to teach anywhere, anything, pretty much. But in a way where you're informed by all of the subtleties of the human being as well, and how to address them in your classes and privates and stuff. So there's that. And retreats. I do some retreats with my husband, which are focused on people who are in recovery from addiction.
Great.
And that's always a wonderful place to work with people. So that's mainly. I also have a Radiant Body Yoga private group on Facebook that everyone's welcome to join. We would love to have you there. That's where I share more kind of day-to-day spontaneous talks on things that, you could be bringing into your life at any given moment.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, Kia.
Thank you.
I feel like
I
we
so
could just
enjoyed
talk
this.
for hours and hours. I really love your energy and what you're bringing to the community. And I see so much beauty in it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Listeners, get in touch with Kia's work. It really is a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. So much love, Kia.
Thank you.
Until next time.
To you too.